So hi, it's Graham here, and I'm going to do another video about social anxiety. And in this video, I'll be giving a description about what causes our anxiety when we have social anxiety, and also giving a description of the social anxiety cycle and how that works and how it perpetuates social anxiety. So to begin with, I'll describe the feelings that we experience during anxiety. These feelings come from something called the fight or flight response. It's something that's evolved within us to protect us from danger. So this fight or flight response works by this part of our brain working on a subconscious level that's scanning for danger, seeing any signs of a threat. And when it sees signs of a potential threat, it triggers this fight or flight response. And this can be a release of hormones into the body, such as adrenaline and cortisol. And these work by creating physiological changes within our body designed to help us fight off some sort of threat or to run away from it, hence fight or flight. Now the feelings we get when we have this kind of fight or flight response, or you can find that your heart starts beating faster. It's because your body's trying to get blood round to the muscles. It needs to either run or fight. Same with the breathing as well. You'll find that your breathing increases. You start breathing more shallow, more rapidly. You could also find that you get a sensation of butterflies in the stomach, almost like that's associated with a sense of nervousness, and that's because the blood's being redirected away from your stomach and your digestive system towards the muscles, because you don't need to be digesting food when you're in a life-threatening situation. So yeah, there's symptoms or there's signs that the fight or flight response has been triggered. Now this is a brilliant mechanism. It really has helped us survive as a species for millennia, and it's really valuable if, say, a predator, a lion jumped out at you, you'd have this fight or flight response and it trigger you into physical action, so you could run away from it, probably, rather than fight it at least. And yeah, it helps you survive. And so that's what kind of social anxiety is rooted in. It's this fight or flight response being triggered by social situations. So yeah, it's almost just like an oversensitization of this fight or flight response. So the whole way to overcome anxiety is to show yourself or to decrease the sensitization of this fight or flight response. Now that's explaining the fight or flight response and the reason why we get these feelings of anxiety. What can be frustrating sometimes is that you could be in a social situation, for example, you have to do a presentation in front of a group of people, and you can tell yourself consciously that this is not a threatening situation, you know, these are people I know, or it doesn't matter if they think it's a good presentation, it's a bad presentation, it doesn't matter, my life is not in threat, you know, I'm not going to die if I do a bad presentation. So you can tell yourself all that, but the point is though, you will still have that fight or flight response because it works on a subconscious level. It is perceived this situation as threatening, so no matter how much you can consciously tell yourself that this is not a threatening situation, it is still perceiving it as a threat, so it will automatically trigger that fight or flight response, which when you have social anxiety, that can be really frustrating. It feels like your body's having this massive reaction, you know, your heart's going, you're breathing faster, you're shaking, all these things, and you feel like, I'm not in control, why is it doing this? So that can be quite frustrating, but you know, it's just your fight or flight response being triggered, and you will learn over time how to manage this and not to fear it quite the same. So, because our social anxiety is rooted in this fight or flight response, and this fight or flight response is triggered because part of our subconscious brain is perceiving a threat in social situations. The way which you overcome your social anxiety is to create positive memories of you dealing with this anxiety provoking situation and of there being no negative consequences. That's how it works. So if you can show this kind of subconscious part of your brain over time that me standing in front of a group of people giving a presentation is not a threat, because there's no negative consequences, there's no danger to myself, I'm not creating any kind of harm. If you can show it that over time, by repeated exposure, you will decrease the fight or flight response and you'll be able to manage your anxiety. So that's what you need to do to get over your social anxiety. Now, I'll go into just discussing more about the anxiety cycle, which perpetuates and keeps this social anxiety going. The first part of social anxiety, which is common in people, is avoidance. So if you have some sort of anxiety-provoking situation or event in your life, the way this fight-or-flight response, its first kind of method is to try and get you away from that event, to make you avoid the event. So it does it more subtly. So obviously I've described all these symptoms of the fight-or-flight responses, your heart going and you know, your breathing increasing, kind of getting you ready for this, to fight something or run away from it. The first step this fight-or-flight response can use to protect you from danger is to help you avoid it altogether. And it does this more subtly, because this will be through, you might just experience a feeling of dread rather than this kind of really intense kind of heart-beating kind of sensation, and also having thoughts in your mind that are going to try and get you to not go to this event and not to face this fear. Could be really sort of things like saying, oh, if you've been invited to a party, you're saying that, oh well, you know, I'm kind of tired anyway, it's been a big week, probably shouldn't go, you know, I need to have a rest, or I don't really know these people that well, so I probably shouldn't go, I won't have anything to say. So it works very subtly by just drip feeding these messages into your mind, and it's all designed just to trick you to not go to these things, to not face that fear. So that's the first step in trying to overcome your anxiety, is to be very aware when this is happening. And it seems to ramp up the closer you get to the event, the social anxiety provoking situation. The closer you get to it, these kind of thoughts ramp up, and it really is quite tricky, and it will trip you up and make you not face that fear. It's something that I have to continually sort of be careful of, because it's very effective. It's very good at getting you to avoid the situation. But say you can get over that step and you're going to face the fear, either because you've managed to push those thoughts out and stay focused and face the event, or it could be a work thing, it's a work presentation, you can't really get out of it, so you have to face it. So that's the next step, you're actually going to face the anxiety provoking situation. So this is what you do. You now, say, deliver a presentation at work, and because this is outside your comfort zone, your fight-flight response is going to be triggered. It's just inevitable. You can't, like I said, it's being triggered on a subconscious level, so you can't just stop it, you can't tell it not to work. It thinks it's protecting you, so it's going to kick in. And part of this kind of process that you have to go through is to learn how to experience these intense feelings of anxiety, which are unpleasant. You know, you don't like this feeling of my body's doing something that's out of control, you know, and it's not pleasant to feel this kind of almost like a sick feeling of butterflies in your stomach and your heart beating. But the idea is for you to just experience these feelings, even as unpleasant as they are, and just ride them out. Go through this kind of event that's going to be triggering these, but just ride it out anyway. Like another symptom of the fight or flight response is that part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in kind of creative, like intelligent thought, this part of the brain stops having blood flow directed towards it. It kind of shuts down, and your fight or flight response directs blood to more kind of parts of the brain that are involved in survival, getting you ready to fight or run away from danger. So that's what happens. So how you experience that is through feeling like your thoughts are clouded, or you just go blank. So that's quite a common experience that people find, is that when they're having this kind of fight or flight response, you feel like, I just go blank, I can't think what to say. And that's normal. That is part of the fight or flight response. It is designed to try and protect you, so that's a normal experience as well. So yes, while you're experiencing these anxiety-provoking situations, that's a lot to cope with. This whole huge kind of surge of like this fight or flight response, all these symptoms going on. Like I said, your part of your brain's shutting off and you're going blank. So that's a huge amount of things to deal with. So that's probably going to affect your performance. You know, if you're doing a presentation or you're socialising in a group, it probably is going to affect your performance. You know, you are going to be less of who you know you could be. But the point is, in that situation, you need to be forgiving of yourself and just accept that it's going to be like this at first. It's going to be more difficult, and you just need to continually do this. And over time, as this fight or flight response gets turned down and it's not as intense, you will naturally start to become more clearer in your mind. You'll be able to deal with the situation better, and your performance will improve. But you need to be very kind to yourself in these situations. Don't just expect yourself to be perfect the first time you try something that's outside your comfort zone. So always bear that in mind. You know, it's going to take time, and your performance will naturally improve. So that's the second stage. The first stage is you've not avoided it. The second stage is, you know, you performed the event. The third stage is what happens after the event. And this is a really key point as well. So, you know, to have social anxiety, to have faced your fear and done something that's outside your comfort zone, whether that's a presentation or you've attended some social gathering, so that's really brave. You know, that's the very definition of courage, is someone who faces their fears, whatever those fears are. You know, it's bravery. So that I'm always impressed that people do things like that. So yes, you've done that. This third step is the kind of negative self-evaluation and catastrophizing, which having social anxiety means we tend to do. After the event, we kind of overanalyze everything that's going on and ruminate, and you know, think of anything that we could have said that was bad, like, oh, why did I say that? That person's going to think I'm an idiot now. Oh, that was so embarrassing. They could see that I was nervous. They're going to think I'm a loser. Lots of like really negative evaluations. You know, if the performance wasn't perfect and people weren't standing up and giving you a standing ovation or whatever, you know, it's or maybe someone yawned when you were talking to them, whatever they yawned, thinking, oh, that means I'm boring. You know, they were falling asleep listening to me. So these are all just negative perceptions of what happened. You know, there's plenty of other alternatives. The person who yawned could be just tired. They've had a long night, a long day at work, and they find you interesting, but you know, they're just tired themselves. But you know, having social anxiety means you're hyper vigilant of any signs of rejection, and you know, that's what you're looking for. The people like me, you know, your self-worth is all based on how they're viewing you. So that's what happens in this third stage. You go through, you overanalyze everything that just happened and put a negative view on it, and that's key to keeping this anxiety cycle going. It's the reason why you can actually face your fears. You can do something that is really anxiety provoking, but then you can not improve. You'll find that next time you go to that anxiety provoking situation, it's just the same, and then it's just the same, and you can go through life and you never overcome it, because in this third stage you're creating some negative effect. The way you break the anxiety cycle is by showing yourself that you can deal with this anxiety provoking situation, and that there are no negative consequences. And in this situation, you're creating negative consequences through emotional pain. That's what happens when you're negatively evaluating yourself and you're saying, like, I'm a loser, or that person's going to think I'm weird, or you know, I've embarrassed myself. All these things do is create this emotional pain inside. So then, next time you come across a similar situation or social anxiety provoking event, your brain's going to look at past memories of that situation, and it's going to see that, yeah, if this situation doesn't go absolutely perfect, if I show any signs of nerves or anything goes slightly wrong, there's going to be some negative consequences. You know, you're going to beat yourself up, and you're going to create this emotional pain. So again, your brain's going to be like, this is a threatening situation. It's not physically threatening. I'm not going to get any physical damage, but I'm going to get emotional damage. I'm going to get this emotional pain afterwards. So again, that's a threat. That's just as serious as a physical threat. So your brain will be saying, avoid this situation, kick in the fight or flight response, avoid it. You know, it's trying to protect you. So that's really key, is this last stage, is to, when you've been brave enough and you push yourself outside your comfort zone and you've experienced this fight or flight response, be very forgiving of yourself. You need to put in this message consciously, telling yourself that, you know, well done, you know, that's really brave, I've really pushed myself, you know, I'm making steps to mastering my anxiety, it's going to get better, you know, this is just another step on the road that I'm taking to become a master of my anxiety. You need to be giving yourself a real pat on the back every time you're doing these things, and not following these thoughts that you know, you're not good enough and you've done a bad job, and you know, you've embarrassed yourself and you're not good enough and you're inadequate. All these things, you need to really come up with a different narrative, or else this anxiety cycle is just going to be allowed to perpetuate. So that's essentially it then. That's how social anxiety works. It's just an oversensitization of our fight or flight response that's being directed towards social situations. It's seeing social situations as threats, and in a lot of senses they are threats to us, because we have been creating a lot of like emotional pain for ourselves over the years, and it's become really deeply ingrained within us. But the positive news is that this can be broken. You can break this anxiety cycle by not avoiding these anxiety provoking situations, by facing your fears, by being very forgiving of yourself when you face these fears, and understanding that there's no shame in experiencing feelings of anxiety, of maybe perhaps looking anxious when you outside your comfort zone and you're facing your fears. That's just part of the deal. You've got to face your fears. You're going to have to experience these intense feelings. But yeah, but you're going to face those, and then afterwards you're going to be very conscious of this this negative self-evaluation process that's going to happen, and you're going to try and actively, consciously feed in a much more positive message to try and counter that. And over time, by doing that repeatedly, you will be able to master your anxiety, and these events and situations that, you know, that are so intense, so anxiety provoking, can over time become a lot easier, to the point where, you know, you'll get minimal anxiety, if any at all. So that's how it works. And so yeah, so I'm going to do another video as well, which is going to maybe help help you challenge some of these beliefs that we've kind of ingrained within us over time. Some common ones are perfectionism, and another common one is that your self-worth and, you know, your self-esteem is dependent on the approval of others. These are core misperceptions that people with social anxiety hold deep within them. So in another video, I'm going to discuss these kind of core beliefs and how we can challenge these, and that again will help in the process of recovering from social anxiety and learning to master your social anxiety. So thanks for listening.